Hello, okay. I have a proposition for you. What if this beautiful book, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll, 1865 I believe it was, instead of just being like a beautiful novel, what if it's actually a roadmap to meaning in chaos? And I want to explain this. So this is probably like my favorite book ever of all time, and also one of my favorite movies as well. I've seen it like nearly 20 times now. But the book, it's just such a magnificent, fantastical piece of work, and I feel like there is so much meaning in it as well. So recently I've gone back and I've reread it, and I've tried to find like a deeper meaning in every chapter. So hopefully you can watch this and learn something, or gain a new perspective on something, or I don't know, just watch it and have fun. But yeah, so I've written up chapter summaries, they're about to all fall out, on like the points, and we're going to go through and we're going to analyze everything on like a deeper bit of a level. So deep dive time. I hope you're excited. We are going to start with chapter 1. I have quotes over here on my laptop that I've found in each chapter to support what I'm saying. We're just going to kind of break down each chapter in the first book and delve into how it is more than what it seems, which is so interesting. So grab a cup of tea, light a candle, sit down, get comfortable, and let's go. Okay, so chapter 1 is kind of like the setup of the story. I mean, as most chapter 1s are, but in a sense, Alice is in her regular world. She's sitting under her little tree listening to her sister tell a story, and then a white rabbit runs past her and it's talking. And Alice, as an adolescent, it like fascinates her and she's intrigued. So children are very much more susceptible to fascination and imagination than a lot of older people are, because they are experiencing everything for the first time. The rabbit is white, which is a symbol of purity and instinct, and the rabbit in this story is Alice's unconscious guide to leave behind her known world and go into her unconscious, or like the other world, which in this world is Wonderland. In chapter 1, she also falls down the rabbit hole when she goes exploring, so her instinct has led her to this, and now she is falling down, and the falling represents an ego disintegration, where her identity dissolves initially. So this is like the setup for her going into a transformation stage. The quote that I want to reference for this chapter is, "Either the well was very deep or she fell very slowly, for she had plenty of time as she went down to look about her and to wonder what was going to happen next." So this kind of represents like the slow fall into the unconscious, symbolizing the separation of her ego. The whole chapter is pretty much about leaving the known, or like the order of her life and her world, and entering into the unknown, which is like also chaos. So we have order and chaos, and then when your order in your life, your routine or whatever is disrupted, you have chaos. And then it's about making do with what you can to get through that chaos to return back to order, which is what this whole story kind of represents. So the lesson that I take away from chapter 1 is, in order to grow, you must be willing to fall. And I feel like that is such an interesting mindset to have. Like sometimes to get better at something, you need to get worse initially, or things need to go wrong before they can get better. So that's chapter 1, and I think that's a really good setup. It's very paced, which is nice. It's very good. And then chapter 2 is when she creates the tear pool. She's fallen down, she's entered, like, I guess the underworld. So the chapter 1 is she's still in the above world, she's still in her conscious, and then everything that happens from here until she returns is pretty much symbolized by like the unconscious in a way. So in this chapter, she is fallen down, she's landed, and she basically cries so much that she floods herself away. And this is symbolic of how your emotion can create and cause your environment to change as well. So she literally cries so much that she physically floods herself away. So her emotion that she felt that led her to cry, and the confusion, obviously, if I was Alice, I would be very, very scared as well. But the emotion that she felt has led her to alter her environment, and now she's flooded. In this, she also says, quote, "Who in the world am I?" end quote. And this shows, again, she's feeling lost, she's down here, she's entered her subconscious, and she has now lost her sense of self, and it shows like the humility, the ego death, and the almost like loss of identity that she's currently at. And a lot of times as well, like, as I said earlier, if you want things to go good, they might need to go bad first. And this is where she's at right now. She's lost herself. She doesn't know who she is down in this world because she hasn't explored it before. And that's what a lot of going into your subconscious is like. You don't actively acknowledge or face it until you have to admit the truth and recognize it. So the quote from this chapter that I found was, "I wish I hadn't cried so much," said Alice, as she swam about trying to find her way out. "I shall be punished for it now, I suppose, by being drowned in my own tears." So her emotions have become her reality, mirroring how the unchecked emotions can alter your environment in a way. So the lesson that came from this chapter for me was, change truly occurs when you admit you don't actually know who you are or what you're doing in a way. Like if you ever feel aimless, lost a bit, you kind of do need to lose yourself to find yourself. Yeah, which is a pretty important thing to recognize and understand and acknowledge as well. And this is where she kind of starts to realize, it's a very slow build up of her like self-autonomy throughout the book, but she's starting to forget who she is, which is good, because then she gets to rediscover herself and work through problems to come out on the other side of it better. So chapter 3 is the Caucus Race and a Long Tail, which is where she has just gotten through the door, she's figured it out, she's now in Wonderland, so to say, like more than she was, and now she is met by a community of animals, and they are trying to get dry after swimming, and now they are going to run a race where in the end they will all win. So then that begs the question that I have for you is, can you truly be a winner if every single person in the competition will be crowned a winner? What is there to aim for and strive towards if you know that everyone's gonna win? So the quote from this, after the race, when they're trying to figure out like who has won, the quote is, "Everybody has won and all must have prizes." So this is like a death of meaning in sorts, where everyone's outcome, no matter how they performed, are treated equally. And yes, there are good things about this, like it is very, very fair, but is it right? Is that actually how it should work? In the end, Alice is decided to be the one to give the prizes out because she is the outsider of the herd. So pretty much in all of these animals, because they have spent so much time with each other in the community, they have created like an echo chamber of their own ideas as well. And because Alice is an outsider, she has just entered the group, she is chosen to give the prizes because she doesn't have the same vision that all of the other people share, which is why she was kind of the one chosen to give the prize. The lesson from this chapter that I took was, whenever you integrate yourself into a new group, stay true to yourself. Don't immediately conform to all of their beliefs and all of the things that they reciprocate from each other. You truly don't want to be swept up and put into a group. You do want to have your own individuality and your own thoughts, opinions, beliefs. And we can see that the other animals, because they all were so agreeable to the idea of everyone has won, they don't have their own autonomy. They are all just like, yes, everyone has won. Where Alice is like, that's not how you win a game, you know? So she still has that at this point in the book. She's very confused, understandably as well. Okay, chapter 4. This is so fun. I'm having a blast. I hope you guys are having fun. This is just such an interesting concept to me. I just love finding meaning in things. Yeah, it's incredible. So chapter 4 is The Rabbit Sends in a Little Bill. This is where she grows inside the house. So she goes inside and then she becomes way too big for the house, and then she becomes way too small for the house. And this represents the confusion in the part where she has lost her identity. So too big represents an inflated ego, too small is diminishing the self. Her self-concept right now at this point is very unstable because, again, she has lost herself, so she needs to find that right level of proportion in who she is, but she doesn't know how to find that because she understandably is very lost, confused, and she's in a new environment entirely. Hello. We have some visitors. They love story time, so they are here to help with the analysis. So the lesson kind of taken from this one, I couldn't really find any quotes that kind of correlated directly to the point that I was trying to get across with this, but the whole kind of summary of the chapter, I guess, is Maturity is finding the right size of self, so not too grandiose and not too self-loathing. You need to find the balance of, okay, this is where I am, this is what I've got, this is what I can bring to the table, but also I know my limits, and not being cocky about it. Just having a solid sense of self. If you aren't insecure in yourself, nothing that people say will be able to impact you. If you don't know who you are and someone tells you something about yourself, you're going to believe it. But if you know about yourself enough, nothing that people say will affect you to an extreme degree.
Horace, what are you doing?
Okay, yeah, so in chapter 5 now we have Alice meeting the caterpillar, and in this chapter, this is when things kind of take a little bit of a deeper turn into the psyche. So the caterpillar asks Alice, and this is also the quote, "Who are you?" And the caterpillar is very slow, very cryptic, very calm, and that is the classic archetypal question of identity, because Alice simply doesn't know who she is. She cannot answer the caterpillar when he says, "Who are you?" because she has lost herself. So yeah, as I said, the caterpillar, he's very, very slow, he's very soft-spoken, he's very he has secure energy in himself, and that represents detached wisdom from your unconscious. He is not good, he's not bad, much like the Cheshire Cat, which we will get to soon. So yeah, the caterpillar to Alice is pretty much like the calm unconscious asking her ego to reflect on who she is. The lesson that I took from this one is, until you can answer the question, "Who are you?" with truth and humility, you will be lost in Wonderland, which is chaos as opposed to order, which is where she is currently finding herself. Okay, so chapter 6 is Pig and Pepper, where Alice visits a house where a baby turns into a pig, and it's a very chaotic household. Crazy things are going on inside this house, and this isn't kind of about her anymore, this chapter. This is about just a different dynamic that Lewis Carroll was probably trying to demonstrate. In this house, we see disorder, and disorder in a family unit creates very unlikable outcomes for the people involved, and also the people that aren't even directly involved but will be down the line if the disorder isn't reprehended straight away. The Duchess represents destructive femininity because she is kind of only caring for herself in this situation, and yes, that is a good thing to care for yourself, but when there are other factors involved, sometimes you need to put your attention on things outside of yourself, and the Duchess does not do that. We see that in other classic Disney movies and stuff. The evil queen in Snow White, we see the stepmother in Cinderella, we see the witch in Hansel and Gretel. We see this destructive femininity shown in many different ways. Yeah, and in Alice in Wonderland it is the Duchess. So the baby becoming the pig also represents potential turned corrupt, and that is because a baby is one of the purest things that you can have. Well, I would say that it is probably the purest thing in the material world. So the quote from this one is, "If everybody minded their own business," the Duchess said in a hoarse growl, "the world would go round a deal faster than it does." And this kind of just highlights the chaos of control and the breakdown of nurturing relationships when driven by an ego or madness of sorts. So the key lesson taken from this chapter is, when your environment is toxic, development becomes disordered. So you really do want to make sure that your environment, physical environment, as well as your internal environment, are very sound and secure. Chapter 7. Okay, so this is also one, I just love every single chapter in this book with a burning passion inside my heart, but this one is so interesting because this is the Mad Tea Party chapter. This is where we meet the Mad Hatter. The Tea Party is purely nonsensical. Nothing is making sense. It is a breakdown of time, logic, and language. And the Hatter is insane because he's outside of linear time. We see this in how every single day is a birthday there. That is a breakdown of time because that's not what happens. You get one birthday every calendar year. But in this Tea Party, every day is a birthday for everyone. Language is not right. There's the quote, "Why is a raven like a writing desk?" And there is no answer for that. It's a riddle that you cannot answer, and the pure nonsensicalness of it demonstrates how there is just a breakdown of structured language. Yeah, it just really gives an insight into the type of space that she's in. She's in a very dysfunctional, disordered environment that just doesn't make sense. So chaos is demonstrated here at a level of thought thinking and also a social level. So we see that because the people here at the party, they all are acting like one another. It's all just so absurd, but they are all absurd. The lesson taken from this one is when meaning collapses, madness will fill the space. So you need to really do make sure, you really do need to make sure that you have a solid internal when your external is feeling chaotic, because at the end of the day, you only really do have yourself. So if you are strong in yourself, chaos won't alter your life in detrimental ways. Okay, chapter 8. We have got the croquet game with no rules whatsoever. They are playing with flamingos, hedgehogs, everything is just odd in this game of croquet. So the queen in this story, she becomes quite a prominent character towards the end of the story, but this is kind of where we are like mainly introduced to her. She is the tyrant of the story. She demonstrates unbridled rage and, again, just like an insecurity of self. The game itself is chaos pretending to be order, because they are pretending that what is happening is you are able to make sense of it, when in reality there's no reason behind why they are playing the game how they are. It just doesn't make any sense. The quote from this one that I found was the famous "off with their heads." This is just a repetition of unthinking authority, so the shadow of her tyrannical ego. In this chapter, however, this is where Alice begins to recognize how nonsensical, the Mad Tea Party kind of gave her an insight into how, odd this world was, but this is where she really starts to recognize and reflect on the situation, and she's like, okay, something's not right here, this doesn't make any sense, and in that way, she kind of gains some strength, because she's standing up to the belief that this is how it should happen. And in recognizing the madness, she reclaims some self-agency. So the lesson in this one is that tyranny wears the mask of structure, but it's deeply rooted in ego and insecurity. So you shouldn't bow down to something just because you see a crown on it, and this is evident in the dynamic between Alice and the Queen. So Alice is definitely in a more rational, stable sense of mind at this point, and the Queen is just in her way, doing what she does, and Alice can recognize that even though she is a queen and she has the crown on, she's still not making sense. So just because you see someone in a level of authority or royalty doesn't mean that you should follow their rules, because it may not be right in a way. But then it begs the question, what even is right? So, okay, chapter 9, we've got the Mock Turtle story. It is a strange, surreal, mythical kind of story, and a mock turtle is a creature that represents grief and sorrow and longing for the past in a way, and we see that in him a lot. And the quote for this one is, "Once said the mock turtle at last with a deep sigh, I was a real turtle." This shows that he is longing for identity, or he's looking for meaning, or he's mourning his lost self. The kind of grief that keeps him stuck in the past. This chapter is a lot softer than what we have just experienced as well, so it's kind of it's like a return back to emotion. So she's been through what she's been through so far, and now she's kind of had this okay, pause, let's return to a softer baseline and let's get back in touch with our emotions. So this is what she does with the turtle and hearing his story. It's representative of memory and past innocence in a way. Key lesson from this one is, even in a chaotic period, sorrow can still be a gateway to change. But it will only be that gateway to change or meaning if you face it with truth and honesty. So you have to be willing to let down the vision of what you think it is versus what it actually is. And then it can finally help you. Okay, chapter 10 now. So this is the one with the lobster dance. Bit of an odd chapter, I think. Definitely not my favourite, but it's still interesting and there's still a bit to take from it. So in this one, she's seen the tyrant, she's seen the fools, she's seen the predators, so tyrant being the queen, fools being the Tea Party cohort, and then the predators being the Duchess, because the Duchess was very selfish and she kind of wanted to use Alice for her own benefit. Though she's kind of already encountered a wide array of the lower frequency characters. The turtle represents exaggerated sorrow. The Gryphon is just chaotic energy. Full stop. Both of those two characters in this chapter represent distraction without purpose, or just allowing delay to occur with no intention of getting past it. They present their lobster dance to Alice as important and necessary, but in reality it just doesn't. It's absurd and nonsensical. And the quote that I've got for this one is, "Would you like to see a little of it?" said the Mock Turtle. "Very much indeed," said Alice. "Come, let's try the first figure," said the Mock Turtle to the Gryphon. So she's asked to join the meaningless dance, mirroring how we can often perform without understanding why we are doing what we're doing, just to kind of fit into a certain group. And that is kind of perfectly what sums up this chapter, I find. This chapter is really where she kind of starts to get frustrated with the madness of the entire situation, and she does gain back her agency exponentially in this chapter. She's just fed up with and frustrated with every single nonsensical activity that she's encountered so far. So she really does gain her strength back a lot in this chapter. And the lesson in this one is you need to be able to recognize when something is just for performance, or if it's actually led by like true heart and purpose and passion. Those two things are very separate things, but they both can look similar. So you just need to be able to see behind the mask and recognize the intent behind it. Everything is about intention at the end of the day. Like if you go into something with good intentions, you know you've done your part. But if you go into it with bad intentions, anything can happen and you are at fault for that because of your intentions were not clear. So just understand that people will put up masks to try and present themselves as one way, when in reality their intention is complete opposite of that. Okay, now we have chapter 11 and 12, which are the last two chapters of the first book. I've really enjoyed this. I think I kind of want to do a deep dive into the second book, because Through the Looking Glass is actually literally just like a reflection of her normal world. So it's like, this is kind of a dive into her subconscious and her psyche, and it's about evolution and transformation and everything, but the other one is just kind of like, how is her world reflected? And it's kind of demonstrated in like a chessboard structure in the second book, which is really interesting. In this one, in chapter 11 and 12, the nonsensical trial is held. She refuses to play along. The trial represents the ego judging itself using meaningless standards. So in this one, we also see the Queen again. She says, "No, no," said the Queen, "sentence first, verdict afterwards." And this symbolizes a corrupt judgment and authoritarianism dressed up as reason or procedure, when in reality it's just meaningless. And again, the Queen she's demonstrating her tyranny to get her way, even though it doesn't make sense. This time, when she grows, I took it she's growing spiritually almost. She rebukes the Queen and she literally wakes up. So when you finally conquer your fear in this situation, it is the dynamic between the Queen and Alice. She was afraid of the Queen initially. When you rebuke your fear and you face it and you're ready to accept fear and let it come at you without any hesitation, even though you're afraid of it, you will get past it and you'll be stronger for it. So the lesson from this one is sometimes you will need to, even in chaos, stand in your mature integrity and just go through it to get out of it. The way out is through for everything. And there's also another quote in this one where, like, just to demonstrate how kind of solid she is as a person now as well, at the end of the story, she says, "You're nothing but a pack of cards." And that shows that she can recognize illusion, and the cards are like in the juror and they're like the ones that are kind of dictating everything, but she can acknowledge that and she's like debunking the illusion now. She can see through the mask and she can see it for what it is, underneath the surface. So she comes back to life, not naive, but initiated now after everything she's been through when she wakes up. And then she's like, oh, what a peculiar dream. And she now has what she has been through in her life integrated now, because she's been through it in a way. Okay, we're back. It's time to talk about the Cheshire Cat and Tweedledee and Tweedledum, and then I'm going to finish it off with some overall key ideas of the entire story and key takeaways, and I really hope that your perspective has been elevated or it's given you kind of something to think about a little bit. Let's start with the Cheshire Cat. The Cheshire Cat isn't evil, but he also isn't good. He is just ambiguous, elusive truth in a way. He doesn't have a body. He is just a head, which represents the separation of body and mind. He is solely just a brain. He offers Alice guidance, but only if she's willing to decipher and decode it herself. Almost like to me, the Cheshire Cat is kind of like her intuition in a way. So he finds her in a place, the forest. He finds her in the forest, and forests are typically symbolic of the unknown, dark, fear, everything like that. That is kind of what a forest represents. And that is where, in the movie, is where she kind of runs into him. But in the book, it's kind of throughout chapter 6 to 8, I believe. He acts as her guiding light, in a way, because she's in the forest, she is in the unknown, she's afraid, and then she meets him. And he, again, he speaks in riddles, and he does this, it was intentional, because... Why are you puffed? Yeah, so on top of like him just being a disconnection from the physical self and being purely in the mind as a representation, he also kind of speaks in very open-ended guidance for her when she needs it, probably arguably most. So the quote from the Cheshire Cat, if you don't know where you are